Hello guys, welcome back after a long pause. During this year's Malta Comic Con, I had the opportunity to meet actor and writer Mark Ryan. You might know him from the TV series Black Sails or the film series Transformers. I had the opportunity to meet him and have a chat with him, and here's the interview. First of all, Mr. Ryan, how's your experience in Malta? Is this your first time?
It's the first time I've been here. Everybody that I know that's been here has said it's a great place. The people are friendly and so, open and welcoming, and that has been my experience so far. What I find fascinating is the history of the island to me, and all the different layers going way back into antiquity is fascinating stuff. But the people have just been so welcoming with open arms. It's been great. And yes, it's my first trip here. My wife came here and studied at Malta University, and she has been raving about it ever since. And so when I got the invitation from the chaps here to come and visit, I was like, yes, I'm going.
So, Mr. Ryan, you have had quite a full life. You've been on TV,
Yes.
film, in theatre, and you've also been in the army. What's your most memorable experience?
God, I've been so fortunate in my career, and there were certain milestones, I guess, that stand out. I think the opening night of Evita in the West End was one I will never forget. Just that thing of standing on that stage, knowing that show was going to change the West End, and it did. Then going from there to Who Dares Wins to Robin of Sherwood, which again, I knew Robin Hood was going to be one of those landmarks that was going to be difficult to beat because it was such a iconic cult success. So that was a big landmark in my acting career. Obviously Transformers, I've spent a decade now with Michael working on the Transformers franchise, which has been absolutely amazing, and an amazing, challenging experience, but so creative. And it's great to be working with not just Michael, who's a genius, but the entire team, who are very, very talented folks. Black Sails obviously stands out, being Cape Town for 6 months, being a pirate. I've been very lucky. I've been a merry man, a knight of the round table, a pirate, and several giant alien robots. So I did a little film a couple of years ago called Street, which I was very proud of the film. We're going to do another one of those apparently in 2019. And throughout my life, I've just been very grateful for the opportunities. I've written books, as you know, as well. I've written 3 books now about the psychology of tarot cards. As I say, I've been very, very lucky. I toured America with Eric Idle. I've stood on the stage at Carnegie Hall with Eric Idle doing Nudge Nudge Wink Wink, and I've stood underneath a space shuttle Endeavour at Launchpad 39A at Cape Canaveral. So I've been incredibly lucky, and I've got to do dialogue with Sir Anthony Hopkins, who said, "Don't call me Sir Anthony, call me Tony, Mark, come here, dear boy." And memories like that, there's nothing that they can take away from those. So I've been very lucky.
So we actually spoke about this yesterday. Being a massive Black Sails fan, as you know, I was quite shocked about Mr. Gates being killed off so abruptly. But it seems like the industry right now is going through a period where it's avalanched by the Game of Thrones effect. They want to shock the audience by killing off main characters. How do you feel about this effect, this Game of Thrones era?
It's interesting. We went to New York Comic Con, and we launched the show both in San Diego and New York. And we did an interview panel with all of the main cast. And I guess they were the representatives from the TV stations throughout the United States. There's about 20 of them. And we sat there and we chatted and we just talked about our roles in the show and stuff like that. And right at the end, one of the guys actually looked over to the executives and said, "So which one of these guys are you going to kill?" And so there's no surprise. That was the trend. They're going to kill the characters. Now I personally believe, it's just my personal belief, like you said, the Gates character was the audience's eye view into their universe. He was the one that was basically the everyman who the audience could relate to. And I thought that character arc could have gone on well into the next season, probably into the season after that. Even if they fell apart and he was an enemy of Flint's, that voice of reason needed to be within the show. I think as soon as they did it, they regretted it. And that voice within the show needed to be given to the audience so that they had a, like you say, an honorable, sane, rational, and yet trying to deal with all these fighting factions that he was within the middle of it all. So I think it was a mistake, but I understand dramatically why he was, they wanted to show how insane and how ambitious Flint was. And there's no more insane and vicious thing than killing your best friend. And I don't think Toby liked it. In fact, I know that when we actually shot it, he was very emotional about the whole thing. And he was actually crying. And some of the best takes that we didn't end up in the actual show. And we did it, we made it work, and we wrapped and off we went. But I have no regrets about it. You know, it was a great arc, and they probably gave me some of the best dialogue, which if you go online and look at Black Sails, the first thing that comes up is the No Monument speech that Gate makes about their life, which is one of the speeches that basically invites the audience in to this life where there is no monuments. The water pays us, and then it claims us as if we'd never been here at all. That dialogue was so emotionally charged and invited the audience into this world. So I'm not complaining. I was very lucky. I got to get some of the best dialogue, and I got, you know, this rather gruesome, strange death. But hey, you know, it's showbiz.
Yeah, I think they changed the dynamic completely of the show by killing Mr. Gates off, and I think they lost something that was kind of irreplaceable. So
there's a story, a rumor that somebody's floated that it might be a good idea to do a prequel to the beginning of the show to show how they got to be the pirates that they were. So the relationship being between Billy Bones and Flint and the crew before you get up to the beginning of the show. I actually think that would be a great idea, because I think that dynamic alone could have been explored. You know, the relationship between Toby Schmitz and I as being quartermasters, that's another interesting relationship that we only really touched on, you know, and Vane. You know, I only got to do one scene with Zach, with Vane, and I only got to do one scene closely with Toby Schmitz, you know, as Rackham. And I think there's a lot of material there and dynamic that could have been explored and blossomed out into these are really the rivalries that there are and why there are the rivalries that they are. And so I think there would be a lot of material there for them to explore in that universe if they chose to do that.
One last question. What's next for Mark Ryan?
What next for Mark Ryan? I did a film last year called Peterloo with the legendary film director Mike Lee, who has a rather unusual and top secret filming technique which he uses, which involves a lot of rehearsal, a lot of working through the character and character developments. I'm not allowed to say more than that because he's got his own little trademark thing of what he does and how he does it, the audition process, which I don't want to go into, but I was very excited to be working with him. And that film, which is about the massacre in Manchester in 1819, where the army was called in and the militia, the yeomanry basically were called in to control a crowd of 60,000 people, and it got out of hand and the actual cavalry charged into the crowd and killed myriads of people, injured, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of others. So he is probably one of Britain's most notable directors, not just of art films, but now he's, like with Mr. Turner, he's gone into these very, very beautifully made, you know, well shot, incredibly paced movies about art and about history. So that comes out next year. We are supposed to do Street 2 at some point in the proceedings, so Yuri, the likable Russian gangster, he will be back. He will be back, and no, I'm not from Moscow. I was actually asked by some of the Russians on the set whether I actually was, you know, KGB, which was kind of funny because they said, saying, "You speak Russian with English with a Moscow accent. Where are you from originally? Where are you from?" And so that was fun. I hope we do another one of those. There's another couple of projects floating about. There is a plan to republish the Greenwood Tarot, which is what I wrote in the early 1990s. It was the first tarot deck that I did, and it's been out of print for a while, and the rights reverted to me, so we're going to possibly republish that. Wildwood Tarot is doing very well worldwide, so we'll leave that one alone. It's doing just fine. Other than that, there's lots of other little projects floating about that, the business has changed, it's developed, and the key is being flexible. That's the word, flexible, and go with the flow, which I've always tried to do. I've survived 40 years, 40 years in this business, which is impossible because I'm only 39, and 40 years in theatre, film, television, writing books and comic books as well. So I've been incredibly fortunate to have had the breadth of experience and work that I've been offered. So what can I say? Somebody up there is looking after me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryan. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we hope to see you again one day.